Good evening, new and/or prospective Age of Sigmar players. I'm Haywo, and welcome to Every Army in More Than 16 Minutes 2022. I stream on Twitch, so if you have any questions or would like more advanced info, find me at twitch.tv/Haywo or discord.gg/Haywo. Anyway, let's set the scene. Warhammer Age of Sigmar is the over-the-top silly but horrifying, if you think about it for a second, fantasy alternative to Warhammer 40k, which is itself a futuristic over-the-top silly but even more horrifying if you think about it IP made by Games Workshop. That's kind of their thing. AOS is the more dad game of the two for sure. Less unpainted medalists, less rules lawyers, more hobby focused and trying to do weird powerful stuff during games more than winning exactly. For the Magic players out there, if 40k is F&M, AOS is Commander. Finish the lawn, crack open a Monster Zero Ultra, flip the burgers on the grill during opponent's movement phase. Touch grass? Heh, try mowing it, kid. Pre-game notes. Short elevator pitches and theory crafting can only do so much. Try before you buy with friends and empty bases or on Tabletop Simulator. This is OP because you should ideally know if you actually like playing an army before you spend $600 in 3 months painting, only to not enjoy playing with it. That being said, while digital AOS is good for testing and during COVID,
there's just no substitute for the real thing.
One last advice, I strongly urge you to choose a faction you really like the majority of, rather than adore one or two units from but dislike the rest. Spamming one cool thing might be viable sometimes, but balance changes twice a year and you don't want to be one of those poor, jaded souls, forever waiting for their hyper-specific pet units to get buffed because they hate the rest of the faction. You're supposed to slowly acquire most of the model line for your favorite faction over the years and then, at any point in time, be able to take the good stuff off the shelf and play with it when the wheel of balance rotates. Anyway, let's plow ahead. Grand Alliance Order. These armies worship gods in the main Sigmar pantheon. I wouldn't exactly call them good guys because this is a GW game, so if you take their good guys out of the context of a made-up monstrously grimdark universe and put them anywhere else, they would be the bad guys, but in Age of Sigmar it isn't nearly as bad as 40k since a few of these factions might not even be evil. As always, let's start alphabetically with Stormcast Eternals. Each Stormcast was a hero of the realms who sacrificed themselves to protect the weak. Reforged as a lightning-enhanced super soldier that's still a real person, they just respawn like in Quake because the demons of the Age of Chaos did that too and it was the only way to win at the time. However, there are some side effects. But again, it seemed like a good idea at the time and it worked, so thrown to the battlefield on lightning bolts from Sigmar's very hand, everything's a suicide mission. Often they die to a man, but accomplish their goal, which is fitting because victory through sacrifice is like the premise for Age of Sigmar. Every time they reforge, they lose a part of their memories and personality until they're a veritable soulless automaton of combat, which is obviously an allegory for the dehumanizing nature of war. On the table, Stormcast drop from the sky with half your units deep striking to land guns blazing, headshot whatever overpowered monster hero your opponent is sporting, before your slow troops march up to grind. Alpha Strike or Alpha Shoot, good stuff. If you want Alpha Strike strong but swingy unga bunga gameplay, consider lots of dragons. If your opponents have no respect by not playing any chaff, run 9 Annihilators, and they will start playing chaff or they will die. Key units, Lord Relictor, never the Knight version. Vanguard Raptor Longstrikes, Storm Drake Guard, Annihilators with big hammers, and yes, Liberators. New player tip, watch Edge of Tomorrow. Cities of Sigmar, melting pot old Warhammer fantasy model containment zone working together in jolly cooperation because chaos demons conquered the entire world in the Second Age and it was go extinct or grow up and work together. They chose the latter and they chose to do it with guns. Each city is a humongous nation state in its own right. In fact, Hammerhall is so big it spills over into 2 planes of existence with a realm gate in the middle. Each city has their own custom rules and they act as candles in the darkness keeping the demons at bay with the power of huge cod pieces and feathers in their caps. And teamwork. And guns. On the table, you are the A-Team for the Boomers, or the Expendables for the Millennials, or the Avengers for the Zoomers. This army is for list builders. You pick a job you want, find the best unit for that job, maybe a combo or two, repeat. It plays and looks reasonably like an army. You have your heroes and wizards all proudly standing behind lots of troops with a great deal of ranged firepower backing them up. The whole melting pot lore translates exactly to the rules. If you want an army built entirely from a single race, it's probably going to suck. If you hate Stormcast, basically deal with it. They're an excellent inclusion here, which is also exactly lore appropriate. Generally castle good stuff gameplay with some Alpha Strike or Alpha Shoot options. Key units, Frostheart Phoenix, Battle Mage, Iron Drakes or Free Guild Crossbowmen, Phoenix Guard, Shadow Warriors, and whatever the best Stormcast stuff happens to be at the moment, which for a long time was nothing or maybe prime time, but is now dragons. New player tip, watch Record of Loda's War. Daughters of Khaine. Khaine was an old elven god of murder who was so dedicated to being the god of murder that he got murdered. In Age of Sigmar, his bleeding stone heart grew god-beast power armor, but Morathi stole his worshippers, killed him again, and performed a giant blood ritual in Anvilgar to become the new god of murder. She realized the problem with Khaine was that it was possible to murder him, and so she fashioned an artifact out of his heart to protect her from being murdered. This translates to the tabletop as well, where she's immortal for basically the first half of the game, which is often the whole game if it ends on turn 3. Do you like sprinting naked she-elf frenzy berserkers, winged Dami-Mami Lamea avatar-leading power snakes, and weird spindly blood wagons with T-posing Chad statues? Have you played Mon Musu Quest? This faction's for you. I mean, I never heard of that game, and also I'm 12. On the table, Daughters of Khaine is a lawn mower. You pull the rope start a few times, giving them every type of buff under the sun, and let them loose. This can be almost any of your troops, they'll slap, although bow snakes are the best as of this video. This is commonly referred to as a Death Star, also good stuff Grindhouse. Key units, Morathi is an auto-include, and she shows all these other centerpieces what a real god can do. After that, basically everything in the army is great except Doomfire Warlocks. New player tip, watch anime. Fyreslayers. Rippling muscles, glistening bronzed flesh, big mohawks, and the power of symmetry. Our Lord and Savior Bilateralis Symmetricus. This started out as a meme to poke fun at lazy mirroring and CAD, but has actually gone all the way around and become endearing. Their god was Grimnir, who double KO'd the god-beast Queen of Magma Volcatrix in the Age of Myth, and they both exploded, sending Shikan no Tama, Urgold fragments, across the mortal realms that the Fyreslayers are collecting not to reassemble their god, as you might expect, but to make power runes out of them to pound into their own bodies to juice up on god serum instead. Based. On the table, Fyreslayers have 6-foot power in 5'11 frames. T-pose on objectives, get charged, fight first anyway, watch the enemy bounce off. Big defense, good offense, but slow. You have a plethora of once-a-game runes to blaze and abilities that can be used at the right time for great effect. Good stuff Grindhouse, sometimes even Monster Mash. Key units, Battlesmith, Hearthguard Berserkers, and Oops All Magmadroths. New player tip, watch 300 the movie. Idoneth Deepkin. The Idoneth were elven souls devoured by Slaanesh and rescued by Teclis, who then tried to turn the soul stuff into a race of proper high elves. Things didn't go as planned, they were dark and weird and kind of crazy, they had weak souls, they hated him, their favorite movie was The Crow, so he went out for cigarettes and never came back. These dark elves just wanted to be left alone because you don't understand their pain, Dad. So they live in the Marianas Trench and pirate up to the surface every once in a while because they need more souls. Don't let the bright default paint scheme fool you, this is a tortured goth army. On the table, Idoneth Deepkin turbo fly all over the battlefield, fishing for tricks and combos. You can only shoot the nearest Deepkin because their magic induces short-term memory loss. They can run or retreat then charge. Whole army first strike on turn 3, rituals, and battle traits to give your army different bonuses per turn that mimic a crashing wave. Alpha strike, counter strike. Key units, it used to be only spam eels, but rejoice. A bunch of stuff is good now. Akhelian kings, sharks, eels, even thralls and eidolons. Hey, eels good man. New player tip, watch Zatoichi. Kharadron Overlords. KO are ultra-capitalist high-tech sky pirate dwarves in pressure suits. They have
guns. Lots of guns.
Like in Ruby, every object in their society is also a gun, even Lord Magnate Cave Johnson's beard. They have gunship transport gameplay, and their technology is steampunk, except by punk I mean capitalism, and by steam I mean their god's radioactive breath. Pretty metal. On the table, KO plays Flight of the Valkyries on Spotify and sails ships on the table, off the table, all over the battlefield to shoot everything that moves. Flying armored transport with garrison gun lines can feel OP in a primarily melee-centric fantasy game, but if they catch you, those things pop like piñatas. If you like high-risk, high-reward tactical play, this army is for you. Alpha Strike Mobile Suit Gun Line. Key units, Aether Chemist, Ironclad or Frigates, Gun Hauler, Arcanaut Company, and Warp Lightning Vortex despite being a Skaven endless spell in this army with no wizards. New player tip, watch Redline and pretend everyone has guns. Lumineth Realmlords. Lumineth are enlightened Tibetan monastery elemental-infused high elves, and Teclis' second try at making proper elves after that Idoneth incident. This one was a big success, except he did so after watching 900 episodes of One Piece and it kinda shows. We have Earth Clan and Wind Clan so far, I wonder which one is next. Also, because it's a GW game, the High Elves have humongously impractical helmets, as per tradition, long-lived and wise with a purity of purpose, and bolstered by Hishian Realmstone magic. On the table, LRL plays Texas, the god of magic, as a Magic Dom Death Star, backed up by classic High Elven archers, classic High Elven spearmen, and not-so-classic anime wind spirit foxes dabbing on anyone who moves less than 36 inches per turn. Aether Quartz magic gives them on-demand bonuses, regimental teamwork abilities, have units lined up properly getting bonuses for doing so, and they get to activate twice in a row during combat instead of you go, I go. Rules bloat is strong in this army, but they aren't terrifically hard to play as long as you remember all their stuff. Alpha Shoot, Castle, Combo. Key units: Texas is an auto-include, Sentinels, Wardens, and Severeth and/or Hurricane Spirits of the Wind. New player tip: watch Avatar: The Last Airbender. GW certainly did. Seraphon. Seraphon are cosmic beings of pure order, grown in the spawning pools of the Old Ones. Ruled by giga-brain interstellar Slann wizards whose every action is determined by the Old One's half-remembered grand design. Apparently, the ideal form for the combat troops of being so powerful and wise that their leader chills inside a Schwarzschild or a Reefer's model is dinosaurs with lasers. You might not like it, but this is peak evolution. It's Protoss meets Aztec Mayan Dinotopia led by frog liches. On the table, Seraphon is a bag of silver bullet tricks, pretending to look like a proper army. Leaders in the back, lots of troops up front with teleports and summoning to give them the edge. Or play oops all big dinos with lasers, whose hardened scales render any army relying on multi-damage weapons largely impotent from the get-go. Alpha Shoot, Castle, Silver Bullets. Key units: Salamander Hunting Pack for sure. Skink Priest, Star Priest, Engine of the Gods, Bastillodons, and the humble normal skinks. Sometimes Slann Star Master, even Lord Croak. New player tip: watch Star Trek Beyond. Sylvaneth. Ilario awoke as the god of life and nature when the realms were remade, and everywhere she walked turned deserts and planar disarray into lush, livable habitat. She was temporarily killed by Nurgle in his attempt to take over Gairan, but her apple soul pod chilled for a while to be reborn. She woke up and chose violence. Her most warlike incarnation yet leads elven spirits and sylvan power armor to push back Nurgle and defend her home. Trivia: Gerthu has a 10-foot sword and Drycha throws 20 bees at people per turn. Sweet, actually. On the table, Sylvaneth plays according to a pre-made plan more than most, growing wildwoods on the table for synergy, sending out bug cavalry for synergy, playing a bunch of wizard heroes for synergy. Do you like synergy and combos? Please enjoy. Castle, good stuff, combo. Key units: Warsong Revenant, Step on Me Lady of Vines. Ahem. Beetle Flyers probably. Arc Revenant, Kurnoth Hunters, and sometimes even Ilario. New player tip: watch Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. Grand Alliance Chaos. While out of context, good guys in GW games are usually pretty evil. Their bad guys are comical murder psychos, so hey, welcome to Chaos. Blades of Khorne. Blood for the Blood God, skulls for the Skull Throne. Say what you want about Khorne, he's got the best slogans. The Chaos God of War and Bloodshed, running a meritocratic pyramid scheme of might makes right and violent king of the hill. Hulking muscle juicers proving their power to earn more. Magic is weak, rely on your strength of arms. He also hates shooting apparently, which is kind of questionable for a god of war considering how OP superior range is in the game and in real life and in all of history, but actually he's just obsessed with trolling his own worshippers. On the table, you rack up blood tithe whenever anything dies, even your own dudes, to spend on one-shot bonuses like moving twice, auto-unbinding, or fighting in the hero phase. Warning, Khorne plays nothing like what you would expect based on the lore. If you want actual Khorne gameplay, pick Ironjawz 100%. If you want tempo finesse buff zones with models absolutely
double cheeked up on a Thursday afternoon,
pick Khorne. Key units: Scarbrand, the auto-include. Then Bloodsecrator, Slaughter Priest, Scarbrand again, and for sure, Khorne marked Demon Prince, even though it's definitely getting nerfed this winter with the STD tome. New player tip: watch Fist of the North Star, 1986 animated feature film, dubbed. Disciples of Tzeentch. Tzeentch is the chaos god of magic and just as planned energy. It was he who first discovered the mortal realms Sigmar's pantheon had long hidden from chaos. His worshippers that first tricked the inhabitants into getting chaos's foot in the door. And he who hasn't done much since but takes credit for anything clever that happens. Full of interesting characters like Kairos Fate Weaver, whose two heads have perfect knowledge of past and future, but forget everything the closer to the present it is, so they get their own plans foiled constantly, with no knowledge at the time of why, but a perfect understanding once it's in the past, just to troll them. On the table, you play like Cities of Sigmar, except with Magic Dom top energy. Lots of chaff, double the wizards, long hero phases, fate dice to let you cheat on rolls, some summoning, and not as many fast flying shoot hammers as you'd like. Castle, tricks. Key units: Kairos Fate Weaver, Blue Scribes, Pink Horrors for sure, and Flamers. New player tip: watch Death Note. Hedonites of Slaanesh. Slaanesh is the chaos god of excess, which means they actually pulled a gamer move on the hierarchy of major chaos powers, whomst, one could say, are gods who draw power from the excess of war or disease or whatever their portfolio is. Big brain technicality move that ensures Slaanesh stays as strong as any other. There is a slight snag at the moment with them devouring every elven soul on the planet at the time when the old world blew up, becoming engorged and sluggish enough to get chained up betwixt the light and dark realms, Hish and Ulgu respectively, by the elven pantheon. Knowing Slaanesh, this bondage might not be so unwanted. Oh, gameplay? You get points for damage edging. You kids go have fun. On the table, Slaanesh's Hero Hammer mixed with tactical finesse tempo and gimmicky units. Exploding hits, some summoning, mortal wound archers, and a combat double strike that's kind of tricky to set up. Key units: Sinessa, Contorted Epitome, for sure Blissbarb archers, some Seekers, and sometimes Sigvald or Glucose Pork Lion. New player tip: watch Jojo. Maggotkin of Nurgle. The revolting procession of Nurgle's garden works just as you would expect it to. Grandfather hands out his blessings, spreads his Zerg creep, and overwhelms the flora, fauna, and inhabitants that had the bad luck of being in his way. Nurgle rot is the super disease of choice, being basically incurable except for plot armor. Stratholme had Nurgle rot. It took the combined might of Stormcast and Sylvaneth to fight his encroachment into the mortal realms to a standstill in Ghyran. And then there's this dude. Captain Gutrot D. Spume is a betentacled pirate captain whose ship sails on the tsunami of slime generated by a tentacle the size of Rhode Island from a Nurgle-infected Kraken god beast he mind controls. AOS is sweet. On the table, Nurgle is the absolute T-posing grindhouse, 5-up ward army wide, but may struggle on damage with some light dots. Random but sometimes powerful cycle of corruption to start the game out, good ambush, some summoning, and good spells that are hard to cast. Generally slow, but they have flying cavalry. Key units: Lord of Afflictions, Gutrot Spume, sometimes Festus or the Glotkin, Plague Bearers, Blight Kings, Guo, Slobbity Bilepiper. New player tip: watch Annihilation. Slaves to Darkness. This is your Death Clock Frank Frazetta mural featuring Ronnie James Dio holding a battle axe painted on the side of a van from 1998. Army. Black armor troops with sharp red capes, and iron horsemen riding to the beat of forbidden chaos sorcery. Ruled with an iron fist by Archaon, chosen of all 4 chaos gods and Grand Marshal of the Apocalypse. Swearing to one god is for chumps. Combining the best bonuses of each is the gamer move. He conquered the old world, and from his throne at the All Points, the demigod of darkness is making good progress on the 2-time. On the table, STD plays, much like in the lore, the role of control. Superior tactics and sorceress buffs, blessing ironclad warriors and cavalry. Abilities that hinder, disrupt, and debuff enemy forces, while Marks of Chaos give special powers depending on which god is chosen per unit. Legion of the First Prince is a more demon-focused way to play, led by Be'lakor, who can CC a unit of choice for a turn or two, which is really strong by the way, plus lots of summoning. Key units: Be'lakor, Chaos Sorcerer Lord, Demon Prince, Varangard, Chaos War Shrine, Chaos Warriors. New player tip: watch Metalocalypse. Skaven. Cunning, insane, and universally duplicitous followers of the, cunning, insane, and duplicitous 5th Chaos God, the Great Horned Rat. An army that could only have been thought up by Europeans, I guess, taking inspiration from the Black Plague. These bipedal, industrious, but diseased radioactive rats bring comical horror to the mortal realms. Divided into clans that specialize in their own brands of weird war, be it pestilence, mad science, biomancy, being ninjas, actual combat, and more. As the most numerous race in the mortal realms by far, their tactics tend to be risky and sacrificial to the point of profligacy. But hey, there's plenty more rats where those came from. You know that I'm a Genius, oh no comic? That's Skaven. They're a castle army with lots of flavors of long-ranged fire, be it warp lightning cannons, snipers, or techno-mutant walking weapons platforms. Plus, teleports and tricks. Key units: Arch Warlock, Grey Seer on Screaming Bells, Stormfiends, and Clan Rats. New player tip: watch The Secret of Nim. Beasts of Chaos. Other Chaos armies align with a specific Chaos god to beg for power, but the Ravening Goatmen hordes raise and pillage the mortal realms because that is their very nature, and Chaos rewards its true children. Their herdstone fireplaces blaze with fresh sacrifices to whichever Chaos god will grant them the most rend. Their guiding principle is suffer not armor saves to be rolled. They field twisted Greek monsters who set their browsers to dark mode, like Minotaurs, Chimera, Cockatrices, and Goro with arm blades and an ox head. Also tons of goatmen in chainmail. On the table, Beasts of Chaos are the endless hordes, just run in min-sized units. Charge in, deal damage, then die. Repeat until opponent runs out of guys because you have more. Throw some goats into the volcano for summoning points. The Herdstone Extra Rend aura expands every turn. Good spells like the bonus Rend spell and the other bonus Rend spell. And your behemoths have strong monstrous actions: Horde, Counterstrike, Key units, Great Bray Shamans, Ungor Raiders, Zangor Enlightened, Dragon Ogre Shoggoth, honestly a bunch of stuff. New player tip, watch Hellboy 2. Grand Alliance Death. Undead, vampires, and quasi-mortals, ruled by Nagash, the supreme necromancer and the god of death in all 8 mortal realms. It's Halloween Town, but with less free will and more upside-down black pyramids of necroquake death magic pylons. Flesh Eater Courts. This is your Arthas riding Sindragosa death faction, hordes of insane, technically not undead humans, as ravenous cannibalistic ghouls. Their minds are caught in the tapestry of the Grand Delusion, which has them believing they are loyal soldiers and royal guards, serving regal lords in the high court of golden-haired, silver-armored knights on white dragons. Real Bretonnian stuff, as an unofficial Easter egg. On the table, FEC is Hero Hammer Double Strikers, featuring ambush summoning to mimic the zombie hordes coming in from all sides. Good attack buffs, but hard to cast, plus good troop replenishment. Sometimes Monster Mash. Key units. Zombie dragons and terrorgeists with heroes on top. Abhorrent Ghoul King, ghouls, and sometimes Cryptlayers. New player tip, watch The Princess Bride on one monitor and Dead Alive on the other. Nighthaunt. Lady Olinder leads her haunted hordes of criminal poetic justice punishment spirits sent to the underworld by Nagash, only to rise again so they can pull fresh souls back down with them. In life, she was known as the Mourning Queen, who tragically lost her husband and prince, though the veil she wore was to hide her never-ending smile. In death, she is made to feel the sorrow of, quote, everyone in the world at all times, which is pretty brutal. Trivia, during the Soul Wars, she took her Legion of Grief to Sigmar's Storm Vaults and broke open the Midnight Tomb, freeing the soul of Catacros, who would go on to lead the Ossiarch Bonereapers. On the table, Nighthaunt intends to share that sorrow with their enemies. The whole army is immune to rend, has flying, can retreat and charge, special stacking buffs and debuffs per charge. Hero Hammer Horde waves and tricks, ambush and some replenishment. Key units, Guardian of Souls, maybe even Kurdos. Honestly, like half of their heroes are good options. Spirit Host, Hex Wraiths, Bladegeist Revenants. New player tip, watch Spirited Away. Ossiarch Bonereapers. Catacros, aka Bone Vader, the undying military genius, was personally crafted by Nagash to be the Mortarch of the Necropolis, and the leader of his most elite military fighting force. The troops are each made up of multiple veteran souls as a gestalt within petrified bone armor. They are the Bone Harvesters of Shyish, and would later assault the All Points and do pretty well there, even erecting the Ark's terminus stronghold around the endpoint, and push all the way to Varanspire. It took Archaon himself to drive them out, as although Catacros is a military genius with 1,000 years of experience, he didn't foresee OBR's battle trades getting ruined by 3rd edition changes. That's a rough one, kid. On the table, OBR are Grindhouse Control with some light T-posing once they get there, a slow march of durable troops with veterans' insight from a bunch of extra command abilities. Good regen and replenishment, especially with Harvesters. Meat and potatoes buffs and debuffs from the Catacros Command Center diorama. Alright, Cavalry. Key units, Archon the Black, Mortician Soul Mason, Liege Cavalos, Mortek Guard, Cavalos Death Riders. New player tip, watch 7 Samurai. Soulblight Gravelords. Endless legions of classic undead, skeletons, zombies, and mordant horrors dancing to the tune of magic Nagash invented, necromancy. Led by bloodlines and dynasties of powerful vampire families and mortarchs. The ancient Neferata and her Legion of Blood, the conniving Manfred von Manstein and his Legion of Night, Belladonna Volga, and her wolf-blooded vampires of the Virkos dynasty, Prince Longdong and the martial prowess of Castellai Cavalry, or Loka Vi, the Mommy of Nightmares and her... the Mother of Nightmares and her Avangori monstrosities. On the table, for all the pomp and circumstance of their eccentric leaders, Soulblight plays pretty straight. Shambling, regenerating hordes, a bit of hero hammer, and clever tactical tricks. Ambush from grave sites with lots of troop replenishment, even reanimating fully destroyed units. Key units, zombies for sure, then Blood Knights, Necromancer, Chadukar the Based, Manfred Velazid. New player tip, watch Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust. Grand Alliance Destruction. These armies worship
action, not words, ruled by strength, not committee, where the law changes to suit the individual, not the other way around, where power and justice are back where they belong, in the hands of the people.
Orruk Warclans. Gorka Morka, the great two-headed god of destruction, most closely relates to, perhaps, his orc children. Gork is brutal but cunning, and Mork is cunning yet brutal. Iron Jaws are brutal, Cruel Boys are cunning, and Bone Splitters are,
I don't know.
Savage. Let's go with Savage. Ironjaws are big and love fighting, and punch metal until it's vaguely the shape of armor instead of blacksmithing it to prove how tough they are. They paint their armor yellow to piss off Stormcast, canonically. Crewboys are swamp-dwelling, jagged, poison gut stickers who nothing personnel kid their enemies and silently pull them down into the muck. And bone splitters are on bath salts, screaming naked in the middle of a highway, fighting off 6 cops, can't feel pain, and their leader throws microwaves at people until their brain explodes. Hey, welcome to Orcs in a GW game. Warclans is 3.5 armies. Ironjaws, Crewboys, Bone Splitters, and Big Wa, which is just using whichever orcs you want in a watered-down soup list. On the table, Ironjaws are the envy of most of the melee armies in Age of Sigmar, because they are not only fun, but also good. Alpha Strike, Grindhouse, Death Star. If you win a fight, you get to cut in line and fight with somebody else right away. Move in the hero phase, great buffs, big damage, dragon that punches people, even a teleport, clip it and ship it. Key units, Megaboss on Maw Crusher, War Chanter, Gore Gruntas. New player tip, watch One Punch Man. On the table, Cruel Boys are, well, cruel and tricky. They have a rule literally called Dirty Tricks, which are various surprises you can pull on your opponent generally in the first battle round. Your weapons are coated in neurotoxin, so any 6 to hit deals mortal wounds equal to the damage the weapon would have dealt. And your spells are nice silver bullets. The rest of it's gun line, tempo and finesse, Counter-Strike. Very glass cannon stuff. Key units, Swamp Kalla Shaman, Snatch a Boss on Sludge Raker Beast, Man Skewer Bolt Boys, and Gut Rippas. Sometimes Master Blaster, aka Break a Boss if you like fun. New player tip, watch Predator. On the table, Bone Splitters are Horde Waves Grindhouse. No armor but a ward save, I guess, even if it's only on a 6. They sprint off the line with bonus movement first turn to get into combat and throw buckets of bad dice at people. Once per game, you're invincible in the combat phase. Wurgog Prophets have a 1,000-yard stare, or in this case, the 1,000 mortal wound stare, where you and the target take turns in a mortal wound Rochambeau. Whoever dies first loses. Luckily, he has a 4-up ward, so usually the other guy dies first. Sometimes 5 savage big bosses all fight one after another at the same time. Bone Splitters plays a little memey if you couldn't tell. Downside is they don't have much choice. Key units, Wurgog Prophet, Wardock, Rogue Idol, Savage Boar Boys, and sometimes Savage Orcs. New player tip, watch Baki. Gloomspite Gitz. They worship a living asteroid called the Bad Moon and want it to crash into the planet for kicks. They live in the back rooms of AOS, moist, sweaty, dark. Radioactive fungoid tunnels of the ever-dank. That's not my artistic license this time, that's their official name. Okay? Your only co-workers are giant mushroom spiders, huge mutant Trogopithecus dudes, and critters from the movie Critters, except big. Your leaders are shroom fume vape god wizards, so blazed out of their brain pans they don't even know what edition they're in. Scragrot the Pimp King barely holds it all together, but they found a new friend in Kragnos, the 16-foot-tall centaur demigod of earthquakes and killing dragons, who looks about as out of place here as a werewolf groomsman at a wedding. But you know what? They make it work. Kinda. On the table, Gitz are Counter-Strike hordes of little triangles with nets, spinny boys, meatball cavalry, and elite trogs, doing their best to ignore the awful randomness and no fun allowed bingo of their ancient, awful battle tome, while Kragnos carries the faction on his back. I could go over his abilities, but the TLDR is anything he charges will die, and unless you have a lot of mortal wounds, he will not. Key units, at the time of this video, Kragnos and then some other stuff. Look forward to that new battle tome later this year. Squig herds, snufflers, maybe some stabbers or fellwater trogs, fungoid cave shaman. New player tip, watch Gremlins 2. Ogor Mawtribes. Imagine an army where everyone is Gold Dick Lewising, charging in front of blood sorcerers, juicing them up with meat magic. Gutbusters are man-eating monsters, cursed with a magic hunger that must be sated at all costs. Might makes right, and so the biggest, meanest ones are in charge. Bullies of the mortal realms that, unlike most races, thrived in the Age of Chaos. All the loot and plunder they could want, plus chaos warriors and cultists trying to take over, felt like free food delivery right to their door. Their cousins, the Beastclaw Raiders, are cursed a second time to be followed forever by a huge magical blizzard filled with evil spirits and demons, which was supposed to kill them, but they survived, adapted, and turned it into a weapon. Riding giant Stonehorn, Thundertusks, and Mournfang they've bred and co-evolved with to be even huger and angrier, the army is a living avalanche of freezing destruction. On the table, Gutbusters are pretty straightforward, hungry or eating bonuses depending on whether or not they're in combat. Multicasting Butcher Mages dropping inconsistent but powerful combat buffs on good stuff Grindhouse troops. Also gun lines, since Lead Belchers are just casually carrying around broadside cannons. Key units, Butcher and Oblars, Lead Belchers kinda, Iron Blasters kinda. New player tip, bring some Hot Wings over to Khorne Player's house and watch Fist of the North Star. You'll tear up when Hotto dies. On the table, Beastclaw Monster Mash Counter-Strike. Big durable monster trucks driving around dealing mortal wounds as impact hits whenever they charge anything. Blizzard-themed Glengarry Glen Ross ogres. ABC. Always be charging. You get capture bonuses for your monsters, which was admittedly a bigger deal before 3rd edition. For your few non-Stonehorn choices, Yetis make decent chaff. The Everwinter Curse, whirling frost storm that separates them from other ogres in the lore, has no real significance rules-wise. Looking forward to the book later this year. Key units, Frostwood on Stonehorn, who carries the faction about as hard as Kragnos carries Gitz. Hrothgorn ain't bad though, plus Yetis. New player tip, watch Mad Max Fury Road. Sons of Behemat. They are big. Gargant is the name for giants in AOS, and these are Mega Gargants. The name doesn't lie, they are the Sons of Behemat, the colossal god-beast father of giants who dwarf mountains and cities with his supreme bigness in the Age of Myth. They stomp humans, smash chaos, crush undead, loot their artifacts, eat their stuff. Hey, don't like it. They said might makes right, and they intend on proving it. On the table, you can't get more monster mash T-posing on objectives than SOB. Each mega has 35 wounds, you basically can't capture objectives out from under them unless you kill them. And they can boot the objective markers around the actual table, plus deal decent damage. This army is for those who prefer a more passive grindhouse game plan. Saunter up mid-table, throw your weight around, and hope your opponent can't pass the DPS check. Key units, Kraken Eater, Gatebreaker, Man Crusher Gargants. New player tip, watch Pacific Rim. In conclusion, Age of Sigmar is sweet, thanks for watching. There's like 6 new battle tomes on the way, so if anything changes, catch me on Discord or Twitch streams. Ask any questions you want. Thanks for liking my stuff, hey buy a shirt will ya?